If you're a parent or a professional and you want to work better together and collaborate on a multidisciplinary team, say for an IEP team meeting to develop goals, I am doing something a little different this week. I am talking about 3 ways to partner with parents for multidisciplinary teams. This is a lecture I prepared to be on a panel at the National Autism Conference in early August of 2024. And I thought I would give you guys a little synopsis of what I presented on during this multidisciplinary evidence-based panel. So let's get to the 3 ways to partner with parents. I believe, as both a parent and as a professional, that parents have the most important seat and the most important role in multidisciplinary teams. And while you can picture an IEP team meeting, and for kids that are on the autism spectrum, those tables, those IEP team meetings have usually, I don't know, in my experience, they've had 8 people, at least 5 people at the table, if not 8 or 10 or 12. They can get quite big. And if one parent goes into that meeting by themselves, they will be physically taking up 1 seat at the table. But I believe that we should think of that parent role as part of teams to be much more than 1 seat. And I would encourage parents, if possible, to bring a support person. Go with 2 parents. Go with 1 parent and a friend who can sit there and support you and take notes. And sometimes we need to bring an advocate. And if you are bringing an advocate to an IEP team meeting, you will need to let them know 24, 48 hours ahead of time for sure. Why I believe that the parent role is so important and they really should be thought of as getting a lot more than 1 seat is that a parent does need to agree and sign off on the IEP, which is a contract. So an IEP is individual education program, and it is very important, and it's a contract. And so if parents aren't on board, they can pretty much veto it. So it's really important that we bring parents along and really value their input and know how important their seat is. Parents also have the most vested interest in the child doing well in both the short term and in the long term. And when you partner with parents, which I know so many of you that are listening already do all of these things, when you partner with parents, they will help generalize skills and the child will make more progress. So I'm going to go over 3 ways to partner better, more effectively with parents. So the first way is I believe we should assess both the student and the family strengths and needs at home and in the community, not just assess the student at school, thinking about school things only. And I want to tell you a little story about an interaction I had in a family I worked with many years ago. It was within the Verbal Behavior Project. I was the lead behavior analyst. That project is still going strong. It's the PATTAN, P-A-T-T-A-N, Autism ABA Supports Initiative. But regardless, this child, we'll call him Tommy, was 6 years old. It's the beginning of the school year. I had only been in a few times to observe the classroom, and Tommy seemed to have some skills. He had a few words that I heard. He had relatively low problem behaviors at school. And I observed him eating corn chips and French fries and those sorts of things. So in my opinion, he had some skills, but his mother requested that she come in at the end of the school day to meet with me and the teacher as I was consulting with the whole classroom. So when Mom came in, as I said, it was many years ago, she reported that she had two boys, Tommy and his older brother, who was only a year or two older than Tommy, and that her husband was in a war and he was deployed, and she was really having a hard time as a mom to these two boys, including Tommy. She reported that she really had limited money, limited financial resources, and that when she took Tommy and his brother out to the grocery store, she had no one to watch them. So she'd bring him out to the grocery store, and unlike his behavior at school, Tommy was really hard to manage at the grocery store. And she even reported that he would clear shelves and have major tantrums, which surprised me a lot given his behavior at school. She also reported that he was not potty trained and that this was a lot of money going to diapers, etc. And one point I want to make here was kind of off track, but if you have a child older than 3 that's still in diapers and your child has a disability, in many cases, you can go to your pediatrician and they can help you navigate the system to get diapers as a medical expense and it paid for. So know that. But, that's something I shared with this mom when she was saying about the diapers and that it was really expensive. Now, of course, I have done a ton of work on potty training, and we can link my free potty guide in the show notes as well as my potty resources. And I don't believe that a 6-year-old should not be potty trained. I believe that we really need to work on that. But in the meantime, you can get those diapers paid for, hopefully. She also reported that Tommy was a very picky eater. He loved, like a lot of autistic kids, he loved neutral colored crunchy foods like chips and fries, which I saw him eat. Very similar to Lucas's picky eating when he was young. When I asked her about vegetables, fruits, and protein, she casually commented that she said only in the baby food does he get that. And I was very concerned. I was like, baby food, but I wasn't freaking out. I was just like, okay, so you give him baby food. And he only liked certain types of baby food with the labels on. This was not pureed food at home, which wouldn't cost any additional money. These were expensive little baby jars full of baby food. And so I just said, okay, so he gets baby food. How much baby food do you give him? And she said 52 jars a week of baby food, which, like I said, this is a while back, but still a big, big expense. So we need to take into account, not that we can go to the schools, so not that we should be expected to do a full assessment at home and in the community. I know school personnel have boundaries, have things they can and cannot do. But here we were working on things that probably weren't as important in Tommy's life as his feeding issues, his potty training, his tantrums at the grocery store, and we needed to consider these things as part of the assessment. I will say that one of the biggest things you could do to get quick information from parents is to encourage them to do my digital assessment called the Barbera Early Childhood Assessment, or the BECA for short. And this would give you and the parents a snapshot of where the child is at, not just in terms of talking at school, but also in terms of picky eating, sleeping, potty training, grooming, dressing. That's a big portion of the BECA assessment. You can still get the BECA for free at the time of this recording, and we will link that in the show notes, but it's at marybarbera.com/assessment. So we have to consider not just what's presenting at school, but also ask families what they're struggling with to get the most progress we can. So the second way to partner with parents is to make sure your goals, your IEP goals, your IFSP goals, or any goals you're working on, take the student and family needs at school, at home, and in the community into account, not just these academic skills and goals. So we really do want to treat the parent's input. We want to get family input as early in the school year as possible so that we're not just being surprised at the first IEP meeting with all of these other bigger issues that we haven't taken into account. Some shared goals between home, school, and the community might include potty training, feeding, picky eating, expansion of diet, eating with utensils, brushing teeth. I mean, I've seen this worked on at school. I don't know how common this is, but the more practice we can get, the more oversight potentially with a behavior analyst, the more input we can get from multidisciplinary team members like occupational therapists and speech pathologists. Another shared goal might be working on medication administration. Many children are on medications, but families might have a difficult time getting children to take medications. Community outings are a good opportunity for schools to work on and assess different behaviors out in the community. And then also goals for prepping for doctor and dental visits might be something you could help work on. I will that may only be feasible within, autism schools, but I am suggesting that we really look at the whole picture and try to help families as much as possible. Also, when you do get unearth some of these problems and situations in the community and at home, you may want to or need to consider referring to a social worker or a case manager to help coordinate services for the WIC program, for milk, or for diapers, like I talked about, until potty trained. Another thing you can refer to in many cases is behavioral support. If you're in the state of Pennsylvania, for instance, wraparound services, waivers, which really vary around the country. And if we have people from all over the world listening as well. So referring people to other service providers that can help would be beneficial. Another thing you can do is consider allowing or encouraging parent visits into the classroom to observe and or to send videos or do Zoom sessions so that you can show the family what you're doing. For Tommy, we didn't know he was throwing major tantrums and swiping things off the shelves at the grocery stores, but if we put our heads together and we get more information about how we might be able to prevent that and work with that family so that they can take Tommy to the grocery store without a problem, would be huge. Additional parent training as needed and if possible, and refer to resources such as my website, marybarbera.com, patent.net, which is the whole special ed arm of the Department of Education in Pennsylvania, which has a lot of resources about ABA, verbal behavior, and evidence-based strategies. Also referring to websites such as behaviorbabe.com and Rose Griffin's abaspeech.org, who I've had on the podcast many times. So what happens if you have a gung-ho parent, like really into interventions and leading the way, and the captain of the ship, that is very pro evidence-based practices? I've had people in my online courses, for instance, who have not been met with open arms when they've gone in and said, wait a second, why are we working on colors when my child can't manage yet for items they want? Or why are we doing this? I think a better goal might be this. And they have not been met with open arms. So when you have a very interested, motivated parent that is for these evidence-based practices, I would really encourage the multidisciplinary teams to work together with the parent to have them bring in their assessment. Maybe they had a VB-MAP assessment done by someone. Maybe they are working with me and my team with high-touch coaching, for instance, and they want to bring these strategies to you to say, hey, maybe we could improve things on this aspect or that skill. Have them make their own videos for the team to watch and to ask questions. Maybe they could observe or meet outside of the IEP team and or come in and show the team how to do something that is working well at home. I was that gung-ho parent. I also was a professional, which was a little tricky to navigate. But when you have a gung-ho parent who wants to take a huge part, wants to take up 5 seats at the table, and wants to really spearhead collaboration, I can't think of a better situation than to allow them to be as involved as feasible. And I know there are limits to that. The opposite problem sometimes happens too in schools and with multidisciplinary teams, and that is a gung-ho parent who doesn't want evidence-based procedures. I've had situations where I was with the Verbal Behavior Project early on from 2003 to 2010, and we would occasionally have families that would not sign the release form for us to work with them, that didn't want ABA, didn't want evidence-based procedures. So they're bringing potentially something that's not evidence-based that they want you and the school team to do. So my first thing I will say is you want to assess what they're actually doing or what they want you to do. You want to assess what specifically has worked or not worked in the past, and don't just tell them no based on the name of the intervention. They may be saying a name, but it's much more aligned with what you're doing. They're just using a different name, and in the end, you need to find evidence-based strategies that you can both agree on to include in the IEP. In general, we want kids to be as safe, as independent, as happy as possible. We want things to be child-friendly, family-friendly, positive. And so I would just avoid a knee-jerk reaction to saying, no, we will never do that type of intervention, when we really need to investigate what they're actually asking for and what kind of strategies have worked that we may be able to try. And the final way that I'm going to talk about today is to teach and encourage parents to use evidence-based practices in the home and community. And we're going to talk about a few of them that I talk about in my books, in my online courses, and in other podcasts and blogs. The one is to use and encourage parents to use 8 positives to every negative. This I first learned through Dr. Glenn Latham, who is deceased now, but he's the author of many books, including 2 books that I reference a lot. One book called The Power of Positive Parenting. It is written in the 1990s. It's very old and it's still very good. And another book that we can link in the show notes, it's actually free for download. It's called Behind the Schoolhouse Door, 8 Skills Every Teacher Should Have. And that again was published in the 1990s and is available for free download. But we want to be as positive as possible with parents, and the parents coming into IEP meetings, you have to also use that 8 positives to every negative. You can't come into it, well, you can. It's not as effective. If you go into an IEP meeting and you start complaining and rattling off all the things that are not working and giving a lot more negatives than positive, you're going to have a much more effective team if everyone can be as positive as possible. Another thing you can do, an evidence-based procedure that parents can use at home, is using task analysis sheets for breaking down self-care skills and tasks that the child can become independent on. They're probably going to need more than the sheet. They're going to need some explanation and some instruction on how to use these. But in the end, we will, in the show notes, we'll include the Barbera Method task analysis sheet. You want to break down the task, each step having 5 words or less, and use gradual fading out of your help to get the child very independent with all of the self-care tasks that they need. Another evidence-based procedure that we should be using and encouraging parents to use and share with us professionals is ABC data, antecedent, behavior, and consequence. This will help, like with Tommy's mom. Like, let's talk about the grocery store. What happens? What is the antecedent? Does he get to a certain aisle? Does he want chips? And then you say no, and then he's clearing the shelves. Like, what is the happens right before? What is the behavior? Does he scream before he clears shelves? We can really help coach parents without being on site at the grocery store, just by using ABC data, and a lot of help to parents in terms of how to prevent that in the future. I also have a method that I've talked about. We can share it in the show notes. I have a video blog on my calendar system. I talk about this in my Turn Autism Around book as well. This is a physical calendar that you can use to keep track of problem behaviors, to keep track of any new medical or behavioral treatments. If sleep is a problem, we can encourage parents to keep track of sleep and naps and use of melatonin or other sleep supplements. And then we can encourage the parents to bring the calendar, the physical calendar, in to meetings with us, to physicians, and I think it's super helpful. So that's another evidence-based procedure we can use to encourage parents to keep and share easy data. And finally, I do recommend that we don't just use communication logs with a bunch of smiley guys, and that we are really diving into giving parents and parents giving us many more details of our shared goals, and that we can really make a difference and partner with parents. So our recap of 3 ways I believe we can partner better with parents is, number 1, assessment of the student and family strengths and needs at home, school, and in the community. Number 2 is make sure the goals that you agree on take into account the student and family needs across all environments, not just academic goals. And the third way we can partner better with parents is to teach and encourage parents to use evidence-based practices in the home and community. So I hope you enjoyed that. I do have some references, mostly my books and Glenn Latham's books. I have a published white paper as well, and you can find all of this information in the show notes. So I hope you enjoyed that little podcast. And if you did, I would love it if you would leave a review on the podcast. If you've read my book and you love it, also an Amazon review would be amazing as well. And finally, share this video with somebody that might benefit. Maybe you are a teacher and you want to share it with other professionals or other parents, or maybe you're a parent and you want to share it with others as well. So hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you here next time, same place, every Tuesday. We come out with a new podcast and a new video on YouTube. So check it out, and hope you have a great week.